Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 127 of Constructive Criticism. I'm your host, just like every week, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Manny Moretz.
Hello.
And Casey Bloodworth.
Hey, how's it going?
I heard you guys both suck at winning win-ins at PVDDR.
As far as I know, we're the worst at that.
Yeah. Although in Sunday, I did technically win my win-in and took 9th, so...
What?
Guess it wasn't a win-in.
The win didn't get him in.
Yeah.
I see. Well,
the old 30% OMW really let me down there.
Maybe you guys can learn from our guest on how to win matches of Magic. This week we are joined by the number 2 ranked player in the world, Paulo, Vitor, Damo, Rosa. What's up, PV?
Hey, hello everybody.
How are you doing, man?
Good.
That's good to hear. So, this week on Twitter, what is his name? The guy that does the Walk the Plains. Nathan... Holt, thank you.
Yeah.
He tweeted at PV, and PV gave this response that I really liked, so I decided to invite PV on the podcast, because we haven't had him on in, 100 episodes. So, PV's going to join us, and we're going to talk about having a positive attitude in Magic. But before we do that, we're obviously going to do all the normal stuff, as well as some questions from the listeners. Let's start with the sponsor of the podcast. You can check out Oasis Games at oasisgamesslc.com. You can get 15% off of your first order by using the code CCMTG at checkout. And you can get 5% off of every order by using the code Would That Be Good. That's with no spaces. Check them out. They're the best. All of our listeners tell us how great they are.
Almost weekly, a listener will tell us how great of an experience they've had with Oasis.
Yeah, they have everything in stock. Check them out. They're pretty great. So, you can also support the show directly by going to patreon.com/ccmtg. This is one of the best ways to support the show. This week we got 4 new patrons of the show. We just want to give all of them shout outs. We have Ryan K. We have Ryan K, Alex K, David C, and Roger B. We just want to give you guys shout outs. It really does mean the world to us that people think that what we say is valuable enough to support us monthly, and we look forward to interacting with you guys more, and hopefully you guys can get some awesome benefits from being a patron of the show.
Well, and not only that, Roger B actually won his PPTQ this last weekend.
That's true.
Big shout out to him.
I was going to give him a shout out during the shout out section, but thanks, Manny.
You bet. I wanted to beat you to it. I knew you were going to say something.
Nice touch.
Yeah, it's really cool to because we've interacted with all of these guys quite a bit, so it's really cool to have them be a part of that family. So thank you so much, guys. It means the world to us. Okay, so typically the first segment of the show is #AlwaysImproving, where we talk about how we've improved at Magic during the week, or how we've improved at life, and just we have the mindset that basically if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And this week we're actually just not going to do that. We're going to leave that to the questions for PV from some of the listeners of the show, which I'm sure is your favorite part of everything, PV, is just being asked a million questions.
I like it.
Okay, well, let's get started. So this one is actually one of my favorite questions somebody asked, and it's if you could trade your skill and prestige in Magic for any other game, which would it be?
It's tough to answer, because my first inclination is to say something like soccer, so that I would be very, very rich.
Sure.
Be
the number 2 soccer play in the world, that would work.
Yeah, but I don't actually like soccer. So if you imagine that, assuming I was very good, I like it, then that is what I would choose. But assuming I have the same taste that I have right now, probably League of Legends.
Okay.
Which is a game that I really, really like, and you can make enough money off of it. Not as much as soccer, but more than Magic.
Sure.
I like the environment a lot.
What rank are you in League of Legends right now?
In the Brazilian server, I am Plat 5.
I don't know what that means. What does that mean, Casey?
Not good.
Yeah, because Plat 1 is 5 is the low end of Plat, right? So, is in the second highest league towards the bottom of it.
Okay, cool. Good to know. If your focus is on improving as a player, more in the short-term results, do you recommend sticking to one deck in a format and mastering it, or trying to go outside of your comfort zone and play a few archetypes that you may or not usually play?
Definitely play different archetypes. I think people put a lot of constraints on themselves when they choose to play the same type of deck over and over and over. And it makes sense for each individual time, because they're probably going to do better if they play the deck in that tournament. But if your focus is not to win a specific tournament, just to get better, I think you should learn to play all the styles. Because there's definitely going to be a point where a certain type of deck is much better than the other type, and you have to be ready to play that. You have to have an idea of how an aggressive deck plays, how a control deck plays. You can't just always play aggro, always play control.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common consensus, is that you should try and be well-rounded in Magic. Otherwise, like, what happens when White Weenie isn't good? So,
which is often.
Yeah, almost all the time.
Yeah.
This one says, a question from outside the USA, outside USA, Europe, and Japan. What's the best way in this day and age to be able to get to the level of play required to consistently do well on the Pro Tour? The reason he asks is because you qualified in Brazil and he's lived in Brazil. Okay. So it says, the question is, if, actually I skipped one. We're going to go backwards. It says, what is the biggest mistake you've made regarding Magic? Not necessarily within a game, and how did you learn from it?
So I don't think there is a single biggest mistake that I've made. At least there's nothing that comes to mind as being, outrageously worse than everything else. What comes to mind is the time that I played White Weenie in Yokohama. And not because it was White Weenie, White Weenie is bad, though that is true, but it was a block constructor tournament, and on Magic Online, the week before the PT, there was a tournament, and the top 8 decks were 8 White Weenie decks. And I just went and played White Weenie, not realizing that everyone would change their decks to beat White Weenie. So I ended up facing against a lot of main deck Fortune Thieves, main deck Sulfur Elemental. Basically, no one at the PT played a deck that could lose to White Weenie. Because of that mode of tournament, I think, in big part. So there was this part where I think I failed to adapt to what was going on. I just kind of tunneled, I think this deck is good and I'm going to play it. But then it turned out that the meta game I was preparing for was completely different. So I think that was a very big mistake. I don't think it's necessarily much bigger than all the other mistakes I've made, but I guess it's what comes to mind.
I think that on my old podcast, on Brain Tap, I think you told that same story, where, so I think it's something that definitely resonated with you, because you've talked about it a few times. I think you've even mentioned it in articles about, like, preparing for the correct metagame.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important.
So how do you notice when you do something like that, and how do you acknowledge it to take steps to not do it again?
Well, I don't know. It's really tough. I guess you have to pay attention to what people were doing, not just to what you would do if you were them. Because a lot of the time we think, we test a deck and we think this card is bad. But that doesn't necessarily translate to no one's going to play this card. Because people play cards that are bad all the time. People play strategies that I would consider not playable all the time. And I think sometimes I just imagine that everyone's going to think the same thing I'm thinking, and it's just not true. So I think it's more important. I think people's perception is often more important than reality when it comes to choosing a deck for a Magic tournament. So you gotta have to figure out what other people are doing rather than just what you think.
Sure. So, a question from someone outside the US, Europe, or Japan. What's the best way in this day and age to be able to play at the level required to consistently play well at the Pro Tour? And the reason he's asking is he's in Singapore and you qualified from Brazil.
I think you have two options. The first one is getting a team, which is what most of the top pros do. It's not easy to get a good team because they're very selective, and if it's your first time you just want a PGQ, you'll probably not be able to get into a team like Chain Fireball or Ultra Pro because we won't know anybody. But you can still have a team of people that you know. There are many teams, not just the super pro ones. And I think having a group of like-minded people who have the same goals as you is very important. So it doesn't even have to be, the people in the team don't even have to be necessarily great players, but I think it's important that they all have the same goal. So if you qualify for the PT, then you want to join a team where most people are qualified for the PT. That is generally better than, just a bunch of friends who want to help you, because even though they want to help you, they're not as invested as you will be and as people who are going to the tournament will be.
Absolutely.
The second option is just playing on Magic Online, which is something that I don't like very much. I don't like the program. I very rarely play it. But it is very good for people who live in more remote places and don't travel a lot. Like, the number of people that won PTQs in Brazil and have been able to go to the PT after Magic Online is so much bigger. Because we used to have, 3 PTQs a season, and then Magic Online had 10 PTQs. So I guess now we change a little bit with the way our PTQs work, so that may not necessarily be true. But it's still good for preparing, I think. There are a bunch of competitive tournaments on Magic Online that you will not have a chance to attend if you don't live in a major Magic city. And you just have to play Magic Online over and over, I guess would be my answer.
So, for you were really young when you, got onto the PT scene.
Yeah, I played my first PT when I was 15, I believe. 15 to 16.
Okay. For some reason I thought you were 14, but either way.
Yeah, and then, it took a while for me to go to a lot of the tournaments. Like, I played one PT in 03, one PT in 04, one PT in 05, and 2 of those were Worlds, which were actually easier to qualify than the PTs.
Sure.
And then it was only in 2006 that I started going to every PT. So since 2006, I haven't missed a PT. But yeah, it took me a while, even after going to my first couple of PTs. And so, most of my testing... Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, is there something that, clicked for you?
No. People often ask that, what is the one moment where you got better? I don't think it works like that. I think it's a very gradual thing. Like, maybe, in a week you were slightly better than you were the week before, and then slightly better than that. There's not a point where you think, oh, I'm good enough now. You just keep improving, and eventually you pass an invisible threshold, but you just don't notice it because it's invisible.
Sure. The next one, you're welcome to pass on if you want to. Do you have any hopes for bannings or unbannings when Shadows comes out?
I have things that I wish would happen, but I don't think are going to happen.
What do you wish would happen?
So, in Modern, I think they have to ban Eye of Odin, which I think they probably will do. Aaron Forsyth gave an interview saying they would ban an Eldrazi card. It could be Temple, it could be Eye. My preference would be Eye. But I think I would also hope that they ban Mox Opal, which would hurt Affinity and Lantern, Inkmoth Nexus, which would hurt Affinity and Infect, something from Storm, probably Detection Probe. I just think they have to ban something from Affinity too. Which, it might not look like it, because right now everyone is playing Eldrazi, but Affinity has such a hold on that format. Like, everyone has to play multiple cards in their sideboard just for Affinity, and you still don't beat it that often. At the same time, the mirror match is miserable, so you don't really want to play Affinity if everyone is playing Affinity. It's really tough. I think the format would be better if Affinity wasn't such a great deck, and if only people that lost to Affinity needed sideboard cards for it, as opposed to everybody needing sideboard cards for it. So
that's something we've talked about a lot on this cast, is during Modern season for PTQs and PVDDRs, is how Casey, we just made a vow to never show up without Affinity hate.
Yeah, I call it the Affinity tax. You have to give 3 cards off your sideboard off the top to Affinity before, when you're making a Modern deck list. Otherwise, you just can't win a tournament.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it makes games really stupid because games become, did you draw your sideboard card against Affinity? If so, you win, and if you didn't, you lose. And I think those games are not fun for anybody, for the person with the hate or for the Affinity player. So I would hope that Affinity becomes, Affinity hate becomes a metagame call and not a necessity.
Sure, I like that.
I do too. That's a point I've never thought about before.
The next one I actually think I know the answer to, because if it's not Gruesome Encore, I'll be surprised. But what is the silliest, most outrageous, funniest thing that's ever happened during testing with CFB?
I don't know.
Is it not Gruesome Encore?
I mean, that was just very stupid. I don't want to encourage this type of behavior. It was silly, but it's silly in a very stupid way.
Do you think that if you didn't encourage it, LSV would stop?
No. No. He's very, like, self-contained in this regard, self-sufficient, doesn't need anybody. He just encourages himself and laughs at himself. There's nothing you can do. The thing is that I like silly things and funny things when they're not made with the intention of being silly. Like, Gruesome Encore is just purposely stupid. Like, it is people only said it, people only did those things because they were silly. And that, to me, makes it not funny.
Okay.
I like silly things that are meant to be silly. They just happen to be silly.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
No, it does.
Do I look grumpy? I don't like fun.
I personally, I think the only reason the Gruesome Encore story comes to mind is because the perception of how much people thought it upset you. Like, I think that you told a story where you would brainstorm and there would be 3 Gruesome Encores on top of your deck, and it's like, what? How did he do that?
It's not upsetting as much as it's baffling about how stupid you can be. This is like, why do you keep doing that? We would just, at some point, we were drafting, and then I got a pack of all Gruesome Encores and stuff like that. It just never stopped.
To be fair, I have a hatred of the card Search Warrant, and we did do a draft at Oasis, and somebody did pass me a pack of mono Search Warrants, and I also got really upset. It just wasn't funny.
Spencer, you have some Gruesome Encores that were signed by LSV, right?
I do have Gruesome Encores that are signed.
Yeah. I remember you trying to start that in our group, and I told you that if you ever did it again, I was going to rip them up. And then I never saw those cards again. So did you consider that? Or did you just have so many of them that you could never get rid of them?
So I don't know how many Gruesome Encores I had signed. The reason that I had the Gruesome Encores signed is because I know LSV doesn't like signing them.
So it was like a counter troll.
He does not.
That's not true.
So is it like, oh no, don't bring me any more Gruesome Encores, but really he loves it?
I think Raptor's the one that told me this, where Raptor, like, it was either you or Raptor told me this, where somebody had LSV sign Gruesome Encores like 3 times throughout an event, and then he said, okay, no more. And then he had a small child walk up with Gruesome Encores, and the small child was like, that guy wants you to sign these for him, and LSV was like, no! Anyway. I actually don't know where those are. I like that. That's just not true.
Yeah, I'm sure he enjoys signing it.
Which decks do you think helped you improve most as a player?
I think Ferris is probably what comes to mind, because it was such a different deck to play. It was so challenging. Like, the games in which you won were often very easy. You just played a Bear Blossom, and then you play, Fairy, Counterspell, Miss My Click, and they died. Those weren't challenging. But the games in which you were losing were so hard, because you had to identify the point in which you had to turn from being defensive to being aggressive. And that point is something that I think is very important in Magic, and not all decks have it. Like a control deck, it generally doesn't matter how early you turn aggressive, because you're just not going to lose the game anyway. So you could just wait 5 extra turns, and that's not going to matter. But in Fairies, you never got total control. You were always, even in games you always had a chance to lose with Fairies. You didn't have as many control mechanisms as a deck like Blue-Black Control or Lantern or Miracles or stuff like that. So you had to turn the clock on that a lot of the time. And knowing when to do that and how to do that is, I think, a skill that is very important for Magic, and playing that deck taught me that.
Interesting. That is... So I know that a lot of people attribute that deck to you, but that's not the deck that I would have thought you would have said.
Oh, why did you think I was going to say?
I didn't know. Like, so, as So the only experience that I have against fairies is really an extended, because I started playing when right after World Weight came out.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I understand, from the way people talk about fairies, might be a misconception. Just that it's it just was so much better than everything else.
I think it was much better than everything else, but that is considering the fact that you're playing it well.
Okay.
It is definitely a deck that, on power level alone, if you just put it in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to play it, I don't think it's gonna carry you to a lot of wins. It's not the same way as Red Green Valakut was a powerful deck, because you just play Primeval Titan and win, regardless of what was happening, or you wouldn't and you would lose. It was very different. Anyone could win the good games with fairies, but the bad games with fairies were really, really hard.
Kind of like Affinity?
Yeah, I think so. I think Affinity is a little bit more forgiving, because, often you miss 3 damage, but you dealt 35 anyway, so the 3 that you missed didn't matter. But yeah, a lot of the games with Affinity are just, the games you were losing are very, very complicated. You just have so many options. And in Fairies, it was good to learn too, because every card was an instant, and you always had so many choices. A card like Cryptic Command, you just had a bunch of modes, even though it was just one card. And you actually used all of them. A card like Mistmind Click, sometimes you would cast it under upkeep, sometimes you'd cast it after they drew, sometimes you'd cast it in combat, sometimes you'd cast it at the end of the turn, sometimes you'd cast it main phase. So if you compare that to, a normal creature, you can always only cast it in main phase. So it gives you a lot more options, and you basically have to think about everything you were doing. Almost nothing is automatic.
Awesome. Cool. Well, let's move on from the questions. Let's go on to every week on the podcast, or as often as we can. We like to give something back to the patrons of the show. And this week we want to give out the card of the week. So these are cards that do well in the format that we get to talk about, what makes them good. This week we're going to give out Collected Company to William R., one of our patrons of the show. Casey, what makes Collected Company so good in this standard format?
Well, there are a lot of 3-drops that you can be playing that are all reasonable. There aren't a ton of, great ones. There's nothing Vendilion Click, True Name Nemesis, anything close to that power level. But there's a lot of very reasonable ones. And so being able to put 6 mana worth of creature onto the battlefield for 4 mana at instant speed is it's a lot. It can be very tough to beat. And you can play it in either, an aggressive shell like Bant Company, or kind of an aggro combo shell like 4-color Rally. And it's a very versatile card.
So one thing that was interesting to me during the GP was people talking about the way that Collected Company plays in Rally. Paulo, what do you think of the card in Rally, and the amount of times that you're looking for something maybe as simple as a Reflector Mage, or what is the 1-drop called?
CDC's Faithful?
Yeah, that's the one. Thank you.
I think the card is very good in Rally, because I think Rally is a synergy deck. It works on quantity, not necessarily quality. So you just want a big mass of creatures, and Rally will give you that. Company will give you that. You can't guarantee you're going to get any specific thing, but most of the time, to win you need 5 creatures, 5 any creatures, not specific ones. And Company will just give you 2 of those, and the fact that it can be flashed back with Jace is very, very important, because it makes sure that you don't run out of gas. Sometimes you just Company into something and a Jace, then that's the end of their turn, they can't do anything, then you just untap and Company again, and that is so strong, you end up with a Planeswalker and 3 creatures from when you started, the previous turn.
From 1 card.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of the whole thing, that's, playing Rally, that's definitely the card that I want to see the most of, and I'm okay with keeping, hands that have several of them, and I definitely don't want to keep a hand that I don't think is going to be live to cast a turn 4 Company, based on mana or whatever, just because it's so, I'll keep a hand without white mana, because they can't cast Rally, no problem, but I don't want to keep a hand that doesn't have green mana, because Company is so important to that deck.
Yeah, I think there are a bunch of different types of hands. Like, I'll often keep a hand with a Jace, for example, if it doesn't have green mana. But yeah, it's also really hard to have 4 mana and not have green.
Yeah, I mean, it's not likely, but it's not impossible either. And, like, the fetching in that deck is interesting. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I'll never keep a hand without green mana, but I don't like to.
I am actually, like, I'm literally, like, 25% of my matches with that deck, I cannot play it, so I guess, I don't know, I think I might be stupid, but I cannot play that deck. In testing, I'm terrible, in practice, I'm terrible, so... But I will say that I do think that it's interesting the different style of company decks we've had throughout the time that companies existed. You know, all the way from, you know, things... Excuse me. All the way from things like, you know, Raptor Den Protector decks to, you know, I know that in Pro Tour testing... Alex Sittner and Josh Wheaton were trying, like, Savage Knuckleblade decks. Like, people have tried a lot of things with this card, and it's interesting to see that it ended up in, like, this very, like Paulo said, this very synergy-esque deck. So, but let's talk about Standard as a whole. So, each week on the podcast, we talk about the 5 best decks, and we give them points according to finish. Manny, do you remember how those points break down?
I do not.
Not a problem. So it's first place is 6 points, second place is 5 points, third and fourth is 4 points, top 8 is 3 points, top 16 is 2 points, and top 32 is 1 point. This is based off of a system made by Frank Karsten. And so what we do is we take tournaments. What we did this time is we took tournaments from the last 3 weeks, including the mocks, and we ranked the decks. So, Manny, what comes in with number 5, and how many points did it get?
Number 5 with 18 points is Mardu Green.
Casey, what is Mardu Green, and how does it play a role in this metagame?
Yeah, it's just kind of it's on the more controlling side of mid-range. It's a Siege Rhino Goblin Dark Dwellers deck, usually.
With a heavy reliance on Crackling Doom.
Yes. Crackling Doom is a big part of it, and being able to recur those with your Dark Dwellers is an important part of the deck. Some versions play Soulfire Grandmaster, some versions play Sylvan Advocate, some versions play a split. But it's always a very grindy deck. It's not a deck that's trying to curve out and kill you with Warden of the First Tree like some of the other Siege Rhino decks we've seen in this format. But yeah, it's just kind of the most powerful mid-range strategy that we have in Standard right now.
What do you think of this deck, Manny? You played it this week.
I like it a lot. It seems very good. I had some trouble with regular Obzon. It was a little more aggressive than I could handle. But I like the deck a lot. It was very good.
Paulo, have you had any experience trying this out yet?
I haven't personally tried it. I have played against it. I think it's a fine deck. It's one you can certainly play. But if I'm going to play this type of deck, I want to have Jace in my deck.
So you're more of a fan of the next deck on the list, then?
Yes, I think it's just a better version of that deck. I don't think Siege Rhino is close to the power level of Jace, basically.
Okay. So the next deck we have with just one more point is Dark Jeskai coming in with 19 points. So this deck is just kind of another 4-color good stuff deck. This one playing blue for Jace, and I think this weekend people were playing, or was it Andrew Cuno or last weekend was Andrew Cuno playing main deck Mantis Rider again? Is that correct?
Let's take a look. Let me pull up his list. I know he had them. I don't know if they were in his main deck. Yeah, he was playing 4 main deck Mantis Rider.
What do you think of that, Casey?
I mean, I love the card Mantis Rider. I think it's an interesting decision. I kind of liked the idea of playing them in the sideboard, like our friend Michael did this weekend, where like you really want them in the matchup where you want them, but it's not a meaningful source of damage in it for a control deck. Like getting in for 3 or 6 just doesn't feel that good to me. But I think that Andrew's list is interesting. It's much more tempo oriented, and some of the versions of this deck that I've played that were more like a control deck. So I'd want to test it before I say I don't like it. But this would not be my guess as to how I'd want to build this deck.
Manny, have you played any games with Dark Jeskai? And in the games you played against it, what have you thought?
Playing against it is, it puts you in a very difficult position. When they have a flip Jace and a dig through time in the graveyard, you almost feel like there's no coming back from that. playing it feels very good. It gives you lots of options. You have, many ways to draw, like Dig Through Time, and the card pool you're playing with is very good as well.
Yeah, the majority of the times that I've been playing this deck, I've been playing Treasure Cruise and Painful Truths,
right?
Rather than Dig Through Time. I think that I've been a really big fan of the 3 Monastery Mentor version. I'm not sure Paulo. What do you like about this deck? Just the power level of Jace?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's a control deck with a bunch of answers, and Jace is the perfect card for that because you can get rid of the wrong answers and get repeats on the good ones. So the other deck is just stuck. If Absent Charm is bad and it draws a bunch of Absent Charms, well, that's unfortunate. If Prekindone is bad and you draw a bunch of Prekindones, you can't do anything.
Sure.
If the Jaces, you can just discard into Jaces, and if they happen to be very good, you can just cast them again. So, and you also get to run Treasure Cruise or Dig Through Time, which are very good in this type of all-answer deck. The other one has Painful Truths if you want, and sometimes Read the Bones if you want to flashback it. But I like the blue cards more. I just don't think you need a big dude like Rhino, basically.
So next up with 25 points, we have Green X Ramp. These are the green Eldrazi decks?
Yeah. They were almost all green-red, a couple of mono-green, and I think 1 or 2 green-blue, but they're all kind of the same deck. So I included all their points together.
Sure.
The Nissa's Pilgrimage, Explosive Vegetation, Ugin, Ulamog decks.
That old show.
Yeah.
Old show?
I mean, you've seen it once, you've seen it in every iteration, right? Ramp, you're dead.
I don't know. I think this deck is more interesting than that. I actually think it's also more well positioned now that I have literally never played this deck in a tournament this year, but I think that Worldbreaker is a little bit better today than it was a week ago. I'm not sure.
Did you read it again and realized how many insane abilities it has?
No.
It's got so many words on it.
No. I'm not sure. I think that in a world of mono discard and counterspell disruption, this is not a great deck, and we had a lot of that a little while ago, and I think that the GP and the Mox didn't have that kind of stuff, so people are moving away from that. People were playing a lot of main deck Duresses a month ago.
Sure.
I guess they kind of still are.
Yeah, I see a fair share in every deck that plays black.
Yeah, but I do notice people cheating on that card, and I basically don't want to play Duress very much at all right now. I think it's pretty bad in most of your matchups, but obviously it is very good in this matchup. So, yeah, I mean that is certainly relevant because it's tough to win two games against this deck, kind of 2 in a row. If they win game 1, and without Duress, it's going to be tough to beat some of their best draws.
It's funny. Paulo's joking about the Mardu green deck having big dumb guys. This deck does not play like some of the ramp decks I played in the past, and for that reason, it kind of turns me off to it. This is just big dumb guys.
And the biggest and dumbest too.
Yeah. So this one's not really my style, but I can definitely see why it's had an uptick.
Yeah.
The next deck is Casey. You actually played this deck specifically because of Owen, so why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, 4-color Rally coming in with 26 points, so just 1 more point than green ramp this time. I thought and still think that this is the best deck in the format. It's not by a huge amount, but I do think it is great. It's extremely grindy, and Paul said, you need 5 or 6 creatures. It almost doesn't matter what they are. Once in a while, they really need to be Zulaport Cutthroats, but for the most part, you're just trying to outvalue your opponent and eventually get there on this deck's kind of weird, its own weird sense of card advantage, which is not necessarily typical card advantage, but it's a very good deck, and you can play it in a lot of different ways against different decks to take advantage of how many angles of attack it has. You have an aggressive plan, you have a combo plan, you have a very slow block, rally back multiple times for incremental advantages. There's a lot of different ways to win with this deck and a lot of different ways to play it.
Paulo, you played green-white hardened scales at the last GP, correct?
Yes.
Where was this on your list of decks?
Does Rally or does Green White?
This deck, Rally.
Rally.
I didn't really ever consider playing it. Not because I don't think it's good. I think it's very good. I think it's probably the best deck in the format. But I just didn't want to practice much, and I have no practice with Rally. And I was just going to play Asper before the tournament because I think that's also a very good deck. But even though no one plays it right now, I'm not sure why. I think it's still very good. But then the green-white deck showed up, and I ended up playing that instead. But yeah, I think Rally is quite likely the best deck in the format, but at the same time, I don't think it's by a huge amount, and I think the mirror is so random too. I really hate that, and I thought everyone would play it.
That is literally my exact thoughts. Is that it's not by a lot, and the mirror is awful.
Yeah, the mirror is awful. I don't feel like it's random, but I do feel like it's tedious. Because I played 2 different PPTQs this weekend, so it's not a huge sample size, but I played the mirror 6 times in 10 rounds. And I went 4-1-1 in those 6 matches, and I felt like a lot of it was knowing how the deck operates more than my opponent did. So, like, knowing what was important, making the right decisions on collected companies, things like that, and realizing, like, how long in the games were going to go.
So if you and your opponents were at the same skill level and the same knowledge of the deck...
It's whoever draws more collected companies. But
so then that's random, right?
Yeah, it is. But I do think the deck does have a lot of play to it, especially in the mirror.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I also thought that a lot of people would be playing a bunch of Hallowed Moonlights and, Kalitas, and I thought people would be really ready for a Rally. I think it's still good if people are ready, but it's not that good.
So the next deck is a deck that people say is either the best or the worst deck in the format. And that's Dant Company, or 4-color company is on this too. What are the 4-color company decks, Casey?
Well, it's still green, white, blue, and it's splashing usually red. I think 1 or 2 of them were black, but it's just to put a little bit more beef in the deck, play a slightly better creature base. Some of them were playing Mantis Rider, some of them were playing Savage Knuckleblade, some of them were playing Anafenza, cutting some of the less impressive creatures that people were playing in Bant.
Okay. Does anybody like this deck on this cast?
I don't. I played against it. I won pretty handily playing Mardu Green. It didn't seem very impressive to me, but I mean, I could be very wrong.
I've tested this deck a little bit, and it just seems... and Matt Kling has also tested it a lot, he said. I don't think this deck is... It obviously just feels like the worst collected company deck than Rally. And I'm of the opinion you shouldn't play it worse something else.
Yeah, I've also tried to play this deck for the kind of the same reason. Like, I don't really like playing Rally for the most part, so I wanted to play a deck that was a little bit more... Like, you could just have an idea as to how your games were going to go, and not as tedious of a deck, but I think that this deck is actually just kind of bad. So, maybe bad isn't the right word, but it's certainly just not as good as Rally, and I just don't know, like, I don't think that it has one matchup that's better than Rally's matchup against the same deck.
Interesting. I mean, if you're playing the Wii Rock version, that has to have something that's better in some matchup, right?
Maybe. Like, I guess it's like the deck is better against the card Anafenza, right? So like if somebody's playing like a deck with Anafenzas and Kalitas, like your average draw isn't as affected by that as Rallies are. But I think that like the overall power level of the deck is low enough that like if somebody plays an Anafenza and a Kalitas, you're gonna have a hard time beating it anyway.
Paulo, where do you think this deck ranks among decks in Standard right now?
I mean, I agree with what was said here. I think it's basically a worse version of Rally. I would never play this deck because Rally exists. I think on power level alone, it might be fine, and if you just throw it in a format, I think it's feasible to play. But there is a deck that is just a better version of it available, so I don't understand why someone would play it, unless they specifically don't want to play Rally.
Yeah. All right. Well, so just standard this week, so we can save a little bit of time because we had all that time to ask Paulo questions. What deck would you play and why in standard this week, Casey?
I want to say Dark Jeskai. After getting a night's sleep and putting this weekend behind me, there's a chance that I would still play 4-color Rally again. Just because it is the best deck, but it'd be between those two.
Manny?
I would probably either play something like Grixis Control or Esper Control.
Like Esper Dragons or straight Esper Control?
Probably Dragons. I think that is the best iteration of that deck.
Okay. Paulo?
I would probably try some Esper Dragons a little bit, and if I liked how it played out, I would play that, and if not, I would play Rally. I would probably just end up playing Esper.
Sold. I'm sold. That's what I'm playing.
I'm the worst. I would play Teamer Black again.
Oh my gosh, you would say that you're going to play Teamer Black and then text me and Casey and then ask between 5 decks what you should play.
But I'd play Teamer Black.
And then we would give you 2 different answers that weren't Teamer Black, and then you would play Teamer Black.
Right. That is exactly how that would unfold.
I love Savage Knuckleblade, dude. I only have that card for so much longer.
Good riddance.
I mean, like, if I was playing... So let's think. If I was playing at a GP, would I play a different deck than a PPTQ? No. I actually think I would. Well, I don't know, because like one of the things that I regretted about Pro Tour Origins is the deck I played, because I didn't play the deck that I should have. I don't know. Let's go on to the training ground. So every week on this show, we're going to talk about something that is going to make you better at life and better at Magic. And this week we want to talk about a snowballing attitude. So first of all, I want to talk about attitude. So attitude is a settled way of thinking or feeling about something or someone or something, typically one that is reflected in one's personal behavior. So, kind of like as we can see from the definition of the word attitude, it's something that can be seen in someone's behavior. So this week, Paulo was tweeting, as I said at the beginning of the show, and one of the things that was said was, I'm just going to read these. So he says, he was asked by Nathan Holt, what was the difference in his game? And Paulo, you said, honestly, there isn't much of a difference between how I behave, I don't think. But I am now happy, and 2 years ago I was miserable. I think that part of that is results. I felt bad because I was losing so much, but it definitely snowballed. I got unlucky a couple of times and thought, well, this is pointless, I just need to get lucky, and then I did even worse. So, you can clearly see that losing had like a huge strain on how much you were enjoying the game, as it would literally anybody. I know that Casey and myself have both talked about that. How do you feel? How did you feel better at Magic than your results were?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, at least in the beginning, I think I've been a pretty consistent player throughout, so it's not like if you analyze my skill level, there isn't a valley in the last 2 years, which there was a valley for my results. Like, I would put my skill, I think 2 years ago I was about roughly as good as I am now, and about roughly as good as I was 2 years before, and my results now and 4 years ago are so much better than my results in the middle. It's possible that they're artificially high now and were artificially high then, but I think
your 10 PT top 8s disagree with that.
Yeah, I think the more likely scenario, at least in the beginning, was that, yeah, I felt better than my results.
So, Casey, you often said that you wish you didn't go to events that you weren't excited for. Is this because you don't have a good attitude about those events, or is there something else going on?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's mostly the attitude. If you don't care about an event, like, you just can't play well. Magic takes a lot out of you as far as wanting to win, like having a will to win, to spend your entire day or your entire weekend playing in a tournament. And if you aren't committed to playing in the tournament, you're just not going to do well. You're going to be distracted, you're going to be thinking about other things that you could be doing, other things you should be doing maybe, and it's going to affect your results in a big way. So, Yeah, that's certainly something that I've experienced.
So, Paulo, with that being said, like, from Casey's point, when you thought about preparing for a PT 2 years ago, like, let's say right after... I was going to ask you this before the show. You barely hit silver that year, right?
Well, I hit silver. I didn't barely hit silver.
You didn't hit gold though, right?
No, I barely missed gold. I needed top 100 at the last PT.
Oh, I see.
Or something like that.
So let's say it was that year. Do you think that it was a stressor on your life? Like, something that you weren't looking forward to going to those PTs?
I don't think necessarily that I wasn't looking forward to going to the PT. I think it was bad once I got to the PTs and started losing. Then I would think, oh, why am I here? But that was not.
And do you think that thought of why I'm here impacted the next round of Magic you played?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Okay.
I think so. So the way this whole thing went was basically I'm a person that is very reliant on, say, rewards for positive behavior and not punishments, but let's say punishments for bad behavior. So this is something that happens to me in all aspects of my life, not just Magic. So for example, say I'm in the university and there is this exam and I study a lot for it and then I do well, but people who don't study also do well. Then I think, well, why did I study? I'm just not going to study for the next one. And if I dedicate a lot to something and I have a good result compared to people who didn't, then I think, oh wow, dedicating really paid off. I will dedicate more. And sometimes I dedicate and I don't do well, and then I think, well, that was a waste of time. I'm just not going to do it again. And this is basically what how I viewed Magic at the time. I thought, for the first, let's say I had a 2-year period where I was constantly losing. And for the first months of those 2 years, I felt like I was dedicating as much as I was dedicating before, or as much as I'm dedicating now. And I just hit a very bad streak that caused me to lose constantly. And at that point, I started thinking, why am I spending all this time dedicating to this thing if I'm just going to get unlucky or unlucky pairings or my opponents are going to get lucky? Like, they're not playing better than me. They're still making a ton of mistakes and they're not winning anyway. So I'm just going to try to be the person that is playing badly and winning anyway, because this seems to be what it's about now. So because I got unlucky those first couple months, my attitude changed. And then I started preparing less and less because I thought it was not going to matter. And then it turns out that it did matter, and I started playing worse and worse. So, which caused me to lose more and more and to want to prepare even less. So, I guess, yeah, I was worse than I was better than my results in the beginning of those 2 years. Maybe by the middle or the end of those 2 years, I wasn't actually better than my results because I dedicated so little.
Okay. That was a really good answer. So let's go to the next thing that happened. So, like, let's start. Like, you get your hand. I actually don't think that this is literally the next thing that happened because you like day 2'd every Pro Tour. I think that the next year, if I'm not mistaken. But you got your hands on Esper Dragons, and is that something that was missing for you? Did that make Magic fun again? Like, what was it about that PT and the next couple months that felt so good?
I'm doing well, mostly. I think it was mostly a result of my result rather than the deck I chose. I do like Esper Dragons a lot. I think it is a deck I play particularly well with. Like, it plays to all of my strengths. I enjoy playing it. But I think the fact, if I had done badly at that tournament, it just wouldn't have mattered.
Okay.
I would just be off it. But I did well. So I thought, oh, I remembered what doing well felt like, and I realized that I liked it. And, I did dedicate a bit for that PT, and I was like, oh, so this paid off. Maybe I should dedicate more. I want to feel like this again. And then I started dedicating about roughly as much as I was dedicating before those 2 years now. Okay. So I really think that what I needed was just to get lucky. I think I got, I practiced a lot, but we got lucky that we stumbled into a very good deck. And I got lucky during the tournament. And then I realized that I liked winning and that if I want to do it more, I can't rely on getting lucky. I just have to practice more.
Okay.
So the same way that getting unlucky made me not want to practice in the beginning,
sure.
I think getting lucky made me want to practice more.
I think that's a very human concept. And, you use the word snowball in your tweets. Do you feel like you're feeling, so it sounds like you're feeling snowballed both ways, right? It was this huge, like, I'm so unlucky, I don't want to prepare, and then I'm still so unlucky, I'm not preparing, and then, I got a little lucky, this was really fun, and that was it. Now you're number 2 player in the world again.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a snowball. Also, like, there are a lot of factors in it. Like, that year, the 2 years that I was silver, I think someone talked to me once, and they said, if you had won one more match in each PT, you would have been platinum. So it wasn't only that I didn't do a lot of winning, but I also spread my winnings really badly, which is not something you can necessarily control. But in Magic, it's so much better to go, 10-3, and then 3-10, as opposed to going like 7-6 all the time.
Sure.
And so I had a bunch of, 9-6 performances, but no, 12-3 performances or whatever, which is why you need to get the points or you need to get money. So that made me feel a little bit bad too, and I guess it didn't happen those years. The year after that, like right now. So I've been spreading my wins more too, which is, again, just luck. And, I don't think you necessarily control it. But yeah, and there's also the mindset, like, for example, the last Modern PT, I played Burn, which is a deck that I hate, because I thought that it didn't really matter what I did, I would just have to get lucky to win. Which is a little bit of how I feel about Modern in general, but I'm sure I felt more that way because I was doing so badly.
Sure.
So it just added another tournament in which I did badly. And for this Modern PT, people told me, people even said, oh, Modern is good. Burn's good. And I said, I'm just not going to play Burn because I don't think, I don't enjoy it, and I don't think if you're better than the competition, this is a deck you should play. And I guess I didn't have that mindset before. I thought it doesn't matter, I just have to get lucky regardless. And my mindset for this Modern PT was, actually, I can't outplay my opponent, so I want to play a deck that lets me do that.
Sure.
So winning gives you more confidence, I guess, and that also changes the type of deck that you play, or it did for me, at least.
Awesome. Manny, little gym rat, you.
Uh-huh.
How does a negative attitude impact your results in the gym?
So, surprisingly, it actually does not. And one of the reasons why is because, forming a healthy habit by going to the gym every day and doing something, even if you're, not high about it, you don't want to do it, and you continue to do it and do it in the way you're supposed to, you will continue to have great results that will, show no matter how much you hate yourself. Interesting.
Because I find that if you have a negative attitude at the gym, you stop going to the gym.
So you do. But like I said, so friends who I have who've been lifting for many years, very large guys, they look the way they want to look and those kind of things. They have, will have spouts about themselves because, I don't know if you know this, but bodybuilders, they have poorer self-image than, a 15-year-old girl, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
That was intense.
Yeah,
it's true. It's it's almost like anorexia, but the opposite. They're never big enough. They're never toned enough. They're
too small. They're too fat. Their veins aren't as big as they need them to be. This, that, and the other. But by continual hard work and continuing, their pursuits of what they love, they always see results, even if they're not the results that they want, because they will never see the exact result they want.
So, okay, interesting. So do you think that having a negative attitude helps you in the gym, Manny?
It can help, but it can also hurt, right? I mean, you have to have a fine balance where, if you're unhappy with your physique, you continue to work out until you get, you shape your body to be more the way you want to see it. But realistically, it'll probably never look exactly the way you want to see it, which, will cause you some discomfort, make you upset, make you hate yourself a little bit, those kind of things.
So, Manny, you have been my friend in my last 3 jobs, right?
Yes.
How has my life changed from working in a place with a positive attitude, versus the places I worked before.
I mean, your overall happiness is much, much better. And you're a lot more content with your life. You you don't mind every day. You don't just want to die.
So, something that happened recently in my life is I worked at a Magic store for a while. I actually worked at Oasis, and while Oasis Games is a great place, I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the situation I was in, and I left and went to work for another company that didn't really care about its employees, and I was kind of in this slump, and I was really unhappy. And now I work for a great company, and they like Paulo said kind of at the beginning of this part, is they have people who have similar mindset to me and are about improving in numbers and just making the best out of the situation you're in and helping others around you. And it's completely changed the way my day goes every day because I'm surrounded by people like that. And Paulo, the last thing that I want to talk about with you is you're winning or losing. Does it have an impact on the people around you, your teammates?
I don't think so. I think it impacts them because it impacts how I behave. So if I'm winning, I'll try harder and I'll contribute more to discussions. I'll be a happier person, and in that sense, yeah, it does impact them. But I don't think they're necessarily impacted. There was I was talking to Michael Segrist about this last weekend, and he said that when we joined the team at first, it was about the 2 years that I had. It was right after the 2 years that I had done badly, so it was right before the Esper Dragons PT.
Right.
And then he said that he thought I was just really bad because I hadn't won in 2 years. He thought I was one of those people. I won a lot before, but now I'm just bad, and hence why I wasn't winning. And then when we tested, he played against me, and he said it depressed him because he actually thought, oh wow, this guy's actually really good, and he hasn't won a match in 2 years. So this can just happen to me. It can happen to anybody. This is so depressing. And I guess, yeah, it is a bit depressing. And in this regard, I guess it matters because they see how good I am. And
that's a real impact, right? Your wins or losses had made him think differently about Magic.
Yeah.
And I think that something that you've done really well at is you do surround yourself with people that that personally I've had great experiences with. For example, Alexander Hain is somebody I know that you've spent time with and that you've play tested with, and he has one of the best attitudes of any Magic player I've ever interacted with. LSV is has while he's silly, always seems to have a great attitude, and you surround yourself with people that want to win and that want to win by putting in work. And I think that does a lot for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes you only get to see the good side of those people.
That's true.
Because I think people like Louise and Hain, they're a bit more closed up. I don't know how well you know them, but... And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but it's probably a good thing. You rarely see them, ranting on Twitter or complain about something, and I'm much more transparent. When I'm unhappy, everyone knows I'm unhappy because I keep complaining all the time. And sometimes I wish I wasn't like that, but this is just how I am. And I think everyone is upset to lose, and everyone, has these mood swings. People just show it in different ways. Like Hain and LSV definitely, I think, have been disappointed with the results a lot of the time, and it has influenced the way they see the game. They just don't show it to everybody. Maybe it wasn't as drastic as what happened to me. But yeah, Luis, for example, he came from a very bad period too, and he just wasn't caring very much because he was doing so badly. It's actually really similar to my situation.
Right.
And then now that he top 8'd the PT, he's back to wanting to do well. And now he's like, so when are we testing? Who are we testing with? Can we stay a little bit longer? And he's just a lot more excited about it because he did well. So there's actually, I think, there's a very similar situation as to mine. It just happened to Luis.
I think that it just talks about that. What this whole thing is about is just that idea that your attitude, and it really is a snowball effect where, like, once you get the taste for a win, that's a huge deal, right? I mean, I think that while you're talking about, much bigger ideas than our listeners are used to, like you're talking about getting, catching up to John in top 8s, right? That's not the idea that one of our listeners would have, right? But they have their first winning record at an F&M. They top 8 their first PPTQ. They win their first GPT. They day 2 for their first GP, and they get the same kind of taste. This thing that's like, maybe I want to try and get to the PT. Maybe I want to try and do this. And I think that it's kind of surreal that at every level of Magic you can have those experiences. You're talking about it now, and you're a Hall of Famer, right? Like,
yeah. No, I definitely think it's similar. Yeah, when you put in effort and you're rewarded for that, you feel like putting in more effort because you want more rewards. It's very similar to how I see the gym. Like, if I go to the gym and I spend a month at the gym and I see that I look better, that will make me want to go again. But if I spend months and I look the same, that will make me not want to go.
Right.
So I think it's the same thing for most aspects of life, and even at the FNM or RPTQ, if you prepare and you do well, it makes you want to prepare more because you see that preparing you see that it's worth it. You see that it's not just a waste of time. I'm terrified of wasting my time, so I only want to do things that I feel like will reward me.
Yeah, it's definitely a finite resource.
Yeah.
Casey, Danny, anything you guys want to say before we wrap this up?
No.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Just a big thank you to Paulo for coming on the show. Everything you've said has been, like really enlightening.
Oh.
Let's
I'm glad.
Let's wrap this up. Let's start with the clan. So you can join our clan on MTGO. Just message me on MTGO at Spencer13Dev, and I'd be happy to add you. You can check out our sponsor at Oasis Games, oasisgames.slc.com, oasisccg.com, and mtgoasis.com. We are pretty close to our next goal of an extra episode for the Patreon supporters only. So, check out patreon.com/ccmtg to get that extra episode in. And, I'm sure that Casey and Manny will love their lives recording an extra day of the month with me.
Well, I think the real appeal is just being able to talk about whatever and say whatever I want and not be edited or censored by you.
I like that you keep going to that well, even though, I don't think that's going to happen.
What? Is that not going to happen? I feel like I've been lied to.
Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe you'll be able to swear, maybe you won't. Who knows?
I bet you I can get enough patrons to get on board with it.
Oh yeah, maybe that can be a stretch goal. If we get up to it's 150 for the episode, right? If we get 160, you get a certain amount of profanity. 175, you get a little bit more.
I say we just leave it up to voting once we hit that mark, and we ask them what they want.
All right. Well, let's talk about where can people find you. So, Paulo, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you?
I think Twitter is probably the easiest way. It's just PVDDR, but Facebook also works. Or I also write weekly for Channel Fireball, so I read all the comments. So if you just drop a comment there, I'll definitely read it.
Cool. Manny, where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter. My name there is Manny, MANNY _CCMTG. You can also find me on Facebook, Manuel Meraz.
But the Facebook group is where you really want people to find you.
The Facebook group is the only place I'm really active on Facebook, so that is the best place, yeah.
Casey, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at CCBloodthirst. You can find me on Facebook at CCTunaBloodworth.
You can find me on Twitter at Spencer13H. You can find me on Facebook at Spencer Stephen Howland. Don't forget to join the Constructive Criticism Facebook group. Follow us on iTunes. And, yeah. All right. Let's go on to these shout-outs. So, this week, I have two shout-outs. First of all, huge shout-out to Paulo for coming on, man. I think that having a positive attitude and, your attitude in Magic has been great over the last year, and I've been... that I'm a huge fan of you, so... But, it's just great to see you win. there's like a running inside joke that like Spencer's going to pick PV in the fantasy draft, so just leave him alone, and like it's fun to watch you. I think that I don't know. I feel like I relate to. I related to you earlier. I don't even remember what like grasped it, but it's just cool to always be able to talk to you, and like you're always so open with me and like willing to talk to me, and I always appreciate you. So thanks again for coming on. Oh yeah. Thank you everybody who watched the first vlog episode this week on the Constructivism YouTube channel. I am really happy for the potential for that medium being different than the podcast, being able to like do a much shorter show and do it a little bit differently, and having that video aspect to it. I have an anti-shout-out, though, to whoever removed the name Pablo Doritos from PV's Wikipedia page.
So yeah, I have a comment on that.
Okay.
Because I saw the what things you were going to talk about, and that was there. I actually like that it was removed.
I would assume.
Not because I just like the nickname. I think it's fun, and I don't mind it at all. But Wikipedia is the kind of thing that people who don't play Magic also see.
Okay.
Like, sometimes my classmates will Google me, and they'll go to my Wikipedia page.
Okay.
Or sometimes my family will do that. Or, maybe a potential employer will do that, and stuff like that. And then they'll read, like, nickname Pablo Doritos, and it's like, this is actually not my nickname, this is just a joke. This is not what I'm known for. So, in a way, I'm glad that it got removed. Yeah, you can keep using it, I don't actually mind, but it's for Magic people.
I think that the potential employers is good enough for me.
Yeah, that is completely fair.
It is very minor, but I don't know. It's just
unless
not
it
my
happens,
nickname. No one actually calls me
that. If it happens,
that.
it's not minor, right? Like that's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's just that it's not my nickname. It's a joke. My nickname is PV or whatever.
Sure.
That is what people actually call me. So I'm glad it's out there, even though I like the story and I don't mind people joking about it.
KC, shoutouts.
I actually had one, but I forgot. Manny, go, and I'll see if I can remember it.
Shout out to Roger for the PVDQ. Still stoked. Me and him bounce deck ideas off each other all the time. Love him. Love the guy. And a shout out to my girlfriend who is turning, some age today. Oh.
That's
20,
embarrassing.
Yeah, 22? Yeah, she's turning 22.
Does she listen?
What?
Does
Really?
she listen to
Yeah.
this ever?
No, she doesn't listen to the show. She doesn't play Magic. Why would she listen to the show?
Oh my gosh, Casey, you have to tell the story from the PPTQ today.
On Saturday?
Yeah.
Oh. No, I'm not doing that. Not throwing Manny under the bus like that.
No, it's fine as long. I told her about it when I got home, so it's not a big deal.
Okay, in that case. So, I don't remember how we got on the subject, but we were talking about Manny's girlfriend, Nicole, and what she weighed for some reason.
This is her birthday present.
Yeah.
For today. We're telling me.
So we're talking about how much his girlfriend weighs for some reason. I don't even remember why. But he's like, well, at least that was before she got really fat. Like, she's pregnant. Now she's a big old fatso.
A big old fatty. A big old fatso.
Yeah. And it was like, I just looked at him and then busted up laughing.
Because it was literally yelling this at the PPTQ.
Yeah, in front of a bunch of strangers.
Yeah, his wife, his girlfriend's a big fatso, and everybody's like, what is wrong with this guy?
Whoa. So come on. It's what happens physiologically when you get pregnant. You get fat. You get to be a big fatso. That's what happens.
I think I read that in a textbook once, so.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't, I wasn't making fun of her or saying it was a bad thing. It's just what happens when you have a
Manny,
baby.
you're so free-spirited, and you just say whatever you want, whatever comes to your mind. It's admirable.
Thank you.
Bit of a wild card.
Fine, sure.
Paulo, any shout-outs this week from you?
Sure, I guess. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy it, and thanks for everyone who's listening. You make it doing a lot of this worth it. And
people were really excited. I've got a lot of messages. I think that it's something that's interesting that I think that people don't realize that, like, you guys are just people too. And they, like, put you on a... I will say this. If you ever want to just get thrashed at a game in your life, play Catchphrase with PV. I think that was, like, the worst I've ever lost at any game ever. And English isn't even your native language. But, like, I think that people, like, don't see you guys as approachable, and I think that's the opposite of the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I think people sometimes just don't see us as people, for both sides, not approachable, and also that we're not going to care whatever you say. Like, sometimes people talk to me on Twitter as if they're talking to an entity that, just doesn't have any feelings. They're like, well, hold on, I'm a real person too. Even if you don't like what I did, like, if I write an article and you don't like it, it's fine to say you don't like it for this and this reason, but the way you say it, like, there's definitely someone reading those things. You're not just complaining to Walmart,
Yeah.
So people talk to you the same way they insult Siri on their iPhone?
Yeah, it's like they're writing a review on Amazon, about a product. And I don't know, sometimes, and for both good and for the bad, it happens both ways. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I wish people would see it as more approachable. I like to think I'm approachable, so I like. But yeah, but I mean, most people are super nice. So a lot of people just, sometimes when you lose a match and you're in your corner upset thinking about what to do, what you did, what you should have done, and then someone just comes up and asks you to sign a playmat, that immediately makes me feel better, because it's like, oh, people actually care about what I'm doing. And so it's good. I think without people, like people who listen to the podcast or watch videos, read articles, it just wouldn't be the same thing.
Yeah. It's actually, the way you said, Paul, I don't know if you've heard this story. I don't know if you heard this story. We were at SCG Vegas, and one of the people that plays at our store was playing against Owen round one. And Owen, he thought, they're playing the Mono Black Mirror, I believe.
Yes.
And he thought seizes Owen. And Owen just puts his hands in the air, and he's like, no cards. And then he's like, oh, that sucks. And then he promptly beats Owen, like 2-0.
Mm-hmm.
And, I asked, I was talking to, I was thanking somebody for something, and Owen was next to them. And I said, Owen, I heard you got Thoughtseize with no cards in hand. And his response was great. It was like, yeah, that was a peculiar line. And I think that, like, it's things like that when I see you or Owen or LSV, like, anybody, like, having those kind of interactions with people, where he didn't say, oh my gosh, I'm so unlucky, I can't believe I lost to such an idiot that would literally Thoughtseize me when I had 0 cards in hand. Like, he says...
Spencer, you're aware that person listens to the show, yes?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
He's like, he says, that was a peculiar line. And so I think that, and the reason I'm saying this is because of the amount of people who have given quite a few of the pros crap in the last couple months has been bothering me a lot. Like, I think that there are people that could probably stay off of Twitter. But I think that, like, you treating them like they're not a person is just as bad as, is not even just as bad. It's actually just much worse than them going to Twitter and complaining. So
yeah, I mean it's a bit of both, I think.
Yeah, but I like what you said that about being approachable. So, all right, hashtag would that be good? Manny, what is hashtag would that be good?
I have no idea.
Shut up.
No, what is this thing we've been doing?
I'm giving you the one you know.
I don't think so. Is this where we talk about what we improved at this week?
I hate you. Punch you in the face.
I'm like, all right. So hashtag would that be good is our Twitter outreach program. You can go on Twitter, ask a question with the hashtag would that be good, and we'll see it. Other members of the fan base will see it. You can get a discussion going, and we read almost all of them on the podcast and talk about them.
So the first one we see is noticing the reserve list is down again. Hashtag would that be good? I think that this is just a problem with Wizards' website. I don't think it means anything.
I agree.
Unless...
Nope.
It probably doesn't mean anything.
They've been on the reserve list for how many years now?
Several.
Many. Yeah, I don't...
Many much years.
Too many.
Paulo, do you think they'll ever undo the reserve list?
My guess is no.
Do you want them to?
I don't know. I mean, if you're asking me personally, I would love for it to be removed, but I feel like I don't understand the implications of that, like the legal implications, or what it would do to people who collected cards back then because of that. So I don't feel like I have enough information to have an opinion about that.
Sure.
Personally, yeah, I wish it was removed, but I don't know if it's actually better for them to remove it or not. I don't know if they can even remove it. So I would have to know more to have an opinion about that.
Okay. We have running Supreme Verdict in the main deck of Team Geist. Hashtag would that be good? So I don't love this deck. Is there anybody on this cast that loves this deck and has a strong opinion about this?
Yeah, I think it's bad.
You think? Oh, you love the deck and you think this is bad?
So I love Geist of St. Traft. I think the deck is bad, and I think that Supreme Verdict in it is bad.
I agree with that 100%.
So I think that if you want to play Geist of St. Traft, you need things like... Your goal is not to play a super long game, which is what playing Wrath of God does. You
basically play Team Geist post board in that PTQ season, right?
Yeah. I've played this deck a lot. I've played a lot of Geist of St. Traft decks in Modern. I know that Team Geist is something that these specific mad scientists or whatever have been working on, but I think it's functionally the same deck that I've always played, just different lists. And I don't think that the deck was ever good. I just liked it. But this is just not part of the strategy in that kind of deck. You can board them in certain matchups, but it's an aggro deck.
I think you're a burn deck, right?
Yeah, this is a deck where in certain matchups you play your Snapcaster Mages on turn 2. So I don't know that Supreme Verdict is part of that same game plan.
It seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of my favorite deck in the world to make fun of from a few years ago, Esper Humans, that would go Soldier of the Pantheon, Priesting Captain, Liev, Sky Knight, Supreme Verdict.
I actually forgot that was a deck.
And
that was legitimately one of the worst decks ever.
Yeah, and I think that this is kind of trying to put you back on that same strategy that wasn't good then and it's not good now. You want spot removal, you need to clear things out of the way so your guys can attack. You don't want to get into a war of attrition because your cards don't line up well.
Alright, we have... You're not funny, Jenkins. Jenkins says, I'm thinking Warp Landscape to fetch a waste. Hashtag would that be good? So
I think that would be a peculiar line.
Yeah, coming from the guy that thought he's going with no cards in hand, it's a peculiar line, Jenkins. That's funny that he's in hashtag would that be good this week.
So people who aren't following spoilers, Warped Landscape it's a land. It can tap for Wingdings, or you can pay 2 mana to sacrifice it and search up a basic and put it into play tapped. So it's like Evolving Wilds that costs 2 mana to activate, or it can tap for 1 of diamonds. And it obviously waste is just strictly worse than it, so you're not going to tutor that up very often, unless you need it for Ruin in their wake.
Yeah, so it would be a peculiar line. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening this week. If the show sounded a little bit fast, I just didn't want it to be 2 hours because we had Paulo on. But thank you so much for coming on, PV. It means a lot to us, and thank you for answering the questions from everybody.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Of course. See you guys all next week.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everybody knows I've got magic in me. magic, magic, magic.